Releasing Trauma is sponsored by the Global Association for Trauma Recovery. The Global Association for Trauma Recovery is a social impact organization serving as a resource for survivors and their families, dedicated to facilitating change by spreading trauma-related awareness and thus creating a more trauma-informed world. Learn more at gaftr.org. Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or a survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today is Dr. Mark Mincolla, and we are going to talk about how to overcome ailments, how to heal from ailments like, autoimmune diseases and things like that trauma creates in our bodies, but how to do it by reframing our thoughts, changing our diets, and creating our miracle healings. So this is going to be a fun conversation. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Tracy, I really appreciate your invitation. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I always like to start off the show with having our guests tell us a little bit about their backstory. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Well, for the past 37 years, I've been practicing alternative medicine from the nutritional perspective. And we've engaged a number of different functional nutritional therapies. We're tapping into people in terms of finding out where their problems are in terms of nutrient intake, and taking the time to put people on nutrition plans and supplement programs. We work with them spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. So we do a holistic consultation. We've been doing that for 35 years. We've worked with 60,000 people over the years. And we've seen so many patients who've had terminal illnesses, so many patients who've had cancers, so many patients who've had very serious illnesses, neurodegenerative conditions, et cetera, and we've had more than our fair share of miracle experiences with so many of these people. So I decided that it was important for me to share some of the amazing miracle stories that I've engaged in and I've worked with over the past 37 years. Many of them are truly remarkable, and we have a movie that's out right now called The Way of Miracles. People are interested, they can actually go to the web to view the movie at thewayofmiracles.com. So The Way of Miracles movie and The Way of Miracles book, which is available at Amazon, they've both been released in the past 2 weeks. They're 5 years in the planning, and they're about stories related to patients' miracles that we've experienced again, and just to bring hope to the world that we've got this amazing track record of being able to engage patients at a very high level of nutrition, biochemistry, and spirituality, and energy, and to actually make it possible for them to experience, make it likely for them to experience miracles. So we've had some amazing stories. One woman in the film, 35-year-old woman from Russia, had a prefrontal brain tumor the size of a golf ball, and they surgically removed it. And 2 months later, the tumor came back. She said, I can't go through brain surgery anymore. That once is more than enough. I just can't see myself engaging in the brain surgery. Impossible for me to consider. So I'm going to find an alternative way. So a friend referred her to me, who worked extensively with her for quite a period of time. Over the course of 8 months, the tumor went away. And it's been 9 years that she's been tumor-free. So she tells her story in the film. Remarkable story. We had another woman who had end-stage breast cancer, and she tells her story about, again, how she was able to change the energy of her body and her mind, spiritually, nutritionally, etc., and just really worked hard. And so many of these people work so hard. Their stories are brilliant. And again, we got great stories told by great storytellers, and they're truly amazing. I mean, the book and the movie are they're spellbinding. They're incredible. The way these people have made a difference in their lives, and I share what I've observed through the process as well. But I just think that the book and the film are remarkable inspirations for people who are looking for miracle inspirations right now, and to bring the message to the world. You're not as far away from miracles as you think you are. Miracles are very real. They're very common events. And if you elevate your consciousness to a higher level, you can tap into miracles and change your life transformationally. No question about it. That's the message.
And we'll have those links down in the show notes as always. Releasingtraumapodcast.com. Just pull up Dr. Mincolla's show and all his contact information, the link to the movies, the link to the book, everything will be there. Now, not a lot of people know that they can actually create miracles. Usually they just sit and wait for a miracle to happen. But you're actually teaching people how to create their own miracles, right?
Well, we say there are 4 different aspects of miracle connections. People can reject miracles. They can accept the concept of miracles. They can expect the concept of miracles, or they can create miracles. I say that you got a choice. There's 4 choices there. You can either reject, accept, expect, or create. And I think that the process begins with you being very positive mentally and spiritually, and to become determined to manifest miracles, to create miracles. That's the beginning point. That's the starting point. And again, my theory about that is, if one person can do something, then 2 people can do it. And if 2 people can do it, anybody can do it. So, I mean, we've had thousands of people go through miracle experiences. Again, 60,000 patients over the past 37 years. We've seen thousands of miracles. We continue to see them every day. They're extraordinary experiences where you normally wouldn't expect people to have a turnaround, to have the ability to make their disease clear up, go away, heal. But these are cases, these are hardcore cases that have actually made remarkable differences, that are documented, and the patients tell their story in. And they're truly amazing stories. They're spellbinding, they're inspiring, they're extraordinary, and they bring the message to the public, to the world, that miracles are real. And you can choose to create them, but you have to begin with the positivity that you have the faith in the process, that you can actually be the miracle maker. There's 2 parts of self. 2 parts of self. Part of our self is a mortal self. It's mortal. It's vulnerable. It doesn't win all the time. Our mortal self doesn't always win. Our mortal self has got foibles. It's got problems. It carries a lot of pain and suffering. Our mortal self is very flawed, if you will. But we also have a divine self. We have a soul. We have a source. We have a spirit. So we have a higher self and a lower self, as you will. And my sense is, if you strive to really go deeper into your source and your higher self, that's when you actually have the ability to transfer from rejecting miracles to creating miracles. It's all done in your higher level. So if you're not taking the time to cultivate your higher self, if you're not taking time to meditate, contemplate, do trance work, yoga, tai chi, prayer, if you're not working hard at it, you're not going to get to the miracle zone. So I say, if you want to cultivate something, you have to be in the climate where it happens. Certain flowers and plants and shrubs and trees and things like that, they require certain environments to prosper and to thrive in. If you're in the wrong environment, they're not going to grow, not going to happen. I say the same thing is true for miracles. Miracles only thrive and only prosper and only grow in the higher self. They're only available, and they're only accessible and creatable within the realm of source, the true self that we are. And there's one section of the book where I actually implore the reader to go to the nearest mirror, and to look in that mirror and to gaze the center of your eyes, into your eyes in the mirror, to look central, right into the middle of the eyes for 10 minutes straight. 10 minutes. I want you to look in your eyes for 10 minutes, undistracted. Keep focused, stay there. Don't lose your concentration. Look in your eyes for 10 minutes. And in so doing, you tap in and you can feel the essence. You can feel the essence of it. You're not thinking about the tissues, the cells. You're not thinking about the personality. You're tapping into and you're palpably feeling the essence of yourself, the soul, the source. And I say that begins the process of opening your mind to who you really are. And who you really are is a miracle maker, because who you really are is derived from source. So I think when you take the time to re-identify your I, we use the word I 500 times a day. We write it, we speak it 500 times a day, but who knows who the I is? Who is your I? Your I is so much more than your personality, so much more than your ego, so much more than your physical self. Your I is your source. It's your divine self. To tap into that divine capacity to make miracles is truly a miracle unto itself. It's this beautiful experience.
But you have your own miracle story, right?
Yes, indeed, I do. It's kind of an irony, I guess you'd say, that Christina Versillo-Bresson, who's the producer of the film, and myself started mapping out the movie about 5 years ago. So we started spending a lot of time mapping it out and deciding how we were going to make the film come together. And again, as I said earlier, the major thrust of the film is focused on the idea of having patients who've had miracle experiences to tell their stories and to share with the viewers and the readers to awaken and inspire the healing and the miracle potentials that's within everybody. So we were going to tap into these patients, listen to their beautiful stories, put a great film together that actually is wrapped around these beautiful stories, these inspiring stories. So we were doing that. Right in the middle of the filming process, right smack dab in the middle of it, I was bit by a Lyme tick. And anybody who understands Lyme disease really, really appreciates and comprehends the disaster of Lyme disease. It's a horrible, horrible thing. That I was bitten by a tick that actually had neuroborrelia. Neuroborrelia actually makes your brain seize up. It inflames your brain. It's degenerative neurological inflammatory agent. And it's a bacteria. It's a spiral bacteria that I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand. I lost my balance. And then I eventually became paralyzed. I was becoming weaker and weaker and less balanced and less able to walk by the days. So one day I went into the bathroom before bed to brush my teeth, and I fell on the hard tile bathroom floor, hit my head. I was paralyzed for 14 days after that. But for roughly 15 hours, I was on that bathroom floor. And I couldn't move. I was actually, I knocked over cleaning chemicals, cleaning agents, and I was breathing them in and drinking them down on the floor because I couldn't move my head. So, I mean, I was really pretty bad shape at that time.
Yeah.
But it was a horrible experience. And I actually contemplated, I said, if I can't move the rest of my life, if I'm paralyzed the rest of my life, do I want to live? Do I want to live? I could just, if I could just commit myself to finishing my life right now, just to crossing over. I mean, I don't know if I want to live without a body, paralyzed from the neck to the toes. So I was really frightened by all that and overwhelmed by all that. And I asked myself, I just confronted myself. It was a deep moment, a personal moment. And I asked myself, do I want to live if I have to live like this the rest of my life? I didn't have an answer. So 25 minutes, 30 minutes later, I inadvertently just started screaming for help. Help, help. Can anybody hear me? Help, help, help. Save me, save me, save me. So I was screaming as loud as I could. And it wasn't until I screamed for help that I understood that I wanted to live. So that's how I discovered that I wanted to stay alive on the planet. And I became determined, and I started thinking about the process. And I said, if I have to talk about this book, if I have to talk about this movie from a wheelchair, I'll do it. I'm determined to do it. And I just mentally turned my life around at that point. It was a miracle moment in my life. So long story short, again, is I for the better part of 2 weeks, I was paralyzed, and it was a horrible experience. I couldn't move at all. Then I was in the hospital for a week. I was in rehab for a week. And I finally slowly started to begin to take care of myself with nutrients, with herbs, vitamins, homeopathic medicines, and strict diet. And I got gradually better every day. And I've fully recovered. And I fully recovered largely because I went through this transformational shift in my life. I became determined to live unconditionally and to become determined to maximize my life unconditionally. Nothing was going to change that. So I became dedicated to my life, to myself, and to my miracle making capacity. And so that's the kind of the irony of the book, that my as I refer to it in the book, my unexpected miracle is chapter 1.
Well, I'm glad you made a full recovery. I know people that have Lyme disease, and it's not pretty at all.
Thank you, Tracy. No, it really is. You're absolutely right. It's horrible. It's a horrible condition. I had a 71-year-old friend that I've been friends with for 30 years, and he got Lyme the same time I did, and he died. Sad story. It's a horrible thing. I mean, people do die from Lyme disease. It's a horrible condition. It's beyond words. 330,000 new cases every year.
Oh my goodness.
And it's getting worse and worse. I mean, I counsel people all the time that have Lyme, and it's just seems to be getting worse and worse in certain vectors of the country. But it's something we need to take very seriously. It's a killer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you've been working with people all over the world. You've been working with them for 35, 37 years.
That's correct.
What are some of the common blocks that you see that people have when they come to you?
You know, I think the single most powerful common block that I see is what I just talked about a few minutes ago. The block of self-love. I think that the most powerful, the most deranging, the most threatening, the most dangerous, the most illness-making problem is this inability to re-identify self, to identify self. So again, to think in terms of the part of us that's flawed. There's part of us that's flawed. It's a sinner. It's whatever you want to call it. It's flawed. There's part of us that isn't flawed. And I think when we haven't been led, inspired to distinguish the difference between our presence in one vein or the other. I think the key is this: you've got so many brilliant, intelligent, educated, inspiring, beautiful people out there. So many that just don't understand that there's two selves, there's two of us. And they don't seem to grasp the fact that the one part of us is not that easy to love, because it's got a lot of foibles, it's got a lot of problems. It's inconsistent, it's incomplete, it's erratic, it's got a lot of problems, it's got a lot of deficiencies, a lot of deficits, a lot of hangups. But the other part of us is the soul, it's the observer, it's the silent observer, it's the divine self, it's the Holy Spirit, it's the God within us, it's the part of us that is capable of being a miracle maker and a lot more. There's no limit to it. So we tend to not take the time to tap into that differential and to realize that both parts of those are living, their mutual compatibility of opposition. They represent a mutual compatibility of opposition. So to have the good part, the bad part, living in one circle is what we are. That represents, it's like the Tai Chi circle. I always talk about the Tai Chi circle, the yin and the yang sign. You have a dark semicircle with light in the middle, and you have a light semicircle with dark in the middle. That's a metaphor. It's a visual metaphor that actually represents our true self, which is a combination of two facets that are totally opposite. So granted, we can't love, I shouldn't say can't, granted, it's not easy to love one part of who we are. It's always easier to remember that, it's important to remember that it's always easier to love the part of us that is divine. And that's a very real part of who we are. So to understand and to tap into and emanate from that source, to come from that place of divinity is really important. And people tend not to have that advantage. People tend not to come from that place. People tend to just think of themselves as one thing, flawed. And I can't love that part of me that's flawed. So I'm out of the love business, And I think that tears people away from themselves. And that's the greatest block of all. And it makes dis-ease, as I like to say in the book, dis-ease creates disease. So the lack of love for self, because of the lack of understanding of the self's duality, leads to dis-ease. And the dis-ease leads to disease. That's the blockage problem right there that you're asking about.
Right. Yeah, I think, we tend to live in ego,
Sure.
and it's funny how we can look at somebody else and see their beauty and not see their flaws, or see their flaws as beauty. But we look at ourselves and always see our flaws.
Incredible. It's incredible, isn't it? It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. So I refer to that as self-content. I say that there's only one mortal sin. The only mortal sin is self-content. Because it excludes the divine part of yourself. It excludes your divinity. It excludes your source. It excludes your real self. It excludes your higher beingness. It excludes the most important part of your relationship, which is what, to me, it's what we came for. It's the whole reason we made the trip. And if we don't go there, then the trip it's waylaid. It gets postponed, and we got to keep coming back and get it right. That's my sense. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for coming on and, talking with me today, sharing about the movie and the book, and sharing your story, your own miracle story. I really appreciate that. Thank
you for having me, Tracy. It's a pleasure to be on. Again, the book is available at Barnes & Noble and most of your bookstores. It's also available at Amazon, obviously, Amazon.com. And the film, people can watch by going to thewayofmiracles.com. thewayofmiracles.com.
Perfect. And again, listeners, I say it every show, we'll have all his contact information down on the show notes. So again, if you're listening from one of our partner stations, it's releasingtraumapodcast.com. Pull up Mark's show and all his information will be there. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, Tracy.
You bet. It's my pleasure. Listeners, thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you in the next show.